So Russia says the likelihood of them using nuclear weapons is growing more and more by the day. And yeah, you guys can let me know your thoughts here on this. This also could be because of how they're stalled in Ukraine. Are they thinking of using nuclear weapons to push forward in Ukraine? Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, who's still very prominent in their system, and he was the president in between Putin's different presidential terms, said Tuesday that the likelihood of using nuclear weapons is growing by the day. He said, quote, nuclear weapons are, quote, the backbone that holds the state together and are fundamental importance for the existence of Russia. Medvedev, who was President Vladimir Putin's stand-in president between 2018 and 2012, and now serves as deputy head of Russia's Security Council, told at an educational event. Medvedev compared this to climate change and said, Medvedev said, climate change is nothing compared to the prospect of a nuclear blast. He said, quote, stop suffering because the temperature rose by 1 degree in such and such a year or such and such a period. Humanity has been watching this for a very short time. Do you really care about climate to such an extent? He said, according to a Russian state-run news agency. He said, quote, do you really care about the climate to such an extent? In my opinion, this is nothing compared to the prospect of being at the epicenter of an explosion with a temperature of 5,000 Kelvin scale, a shock wave of 350 meters per second, and a pressure of 3,000 kilograms per square meter, with a penetrating radiation that is ionizing radiation and an electromagnetic pulse. He said the likelihood of nuclear weapons being used is growing at a rapid rate. Is there such a prospect today? He said, unfortunately, yes, and it is growing every day for well-known reasons. He previously invoked the possibility of nuclear war should Russia be defeated in Ukraine. Defeat of a nuclear power in a conventional way may trigger a nuclear war, he said in a Telegram post in January, discussing NATO's support for Ukraine, saying, quote, nuclear powers have never lost major conflicts on which their fate depends. In July, he also issued a stark warning after the International Criminal Court said it would probe criminal crimes. And remember, now they have actually issued an arrest warrant for Putin. He said, quote, the idea to punish a country that has the largest nuclear arsenal is absurd in and of itself and potentially creates a threat to the existence of mankind. He added on Tuesday that he believes the modern world is sick and it is quite likely that it is on the verge of a new world war. Is it inevitable? No, it is not. A world war can be avoided, but I will not make forecasts. Forecasts are a thankless task. This comes as Sergei Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister, was the leader of Russia in the United Nations here this week, as Russia is actually kind of the leader of the president of the United Nations Security Council here this week. I know they got it on a rotating basis here. Take a look at some of the highlights here of what happened with some footage here. Take a look at this.
At the United Nations, once again, a meeting on Ukraine. But this time, the Russian foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, was not only in the room, he was chairing the meeting, since Russia is the president of the Security Council for April. Harsh words lobbied at the big powers such as the United States, UK, and France by Russia's envoy. Sergei Lavrov said the countries are crossing a threshold perhaps soon.
Досторонность, когда финансово-экономическая агрессия Запада разрушает The situation has been worsened by the loss of and faith in multilateralism, as the financial and economic aggression of the West is destroying the benefits of globalization, when the United States and its allies are abandoning diplomacy and demanding relations to be clarified on the battlefield.
Despite opposition to Russia's policies, the U.S. ambassador and colleagues did attend. Before the meeting, the U.S. ambassador said there's something big in this room.
It's impossible to ignore the giant elephant in the room, Russia. Russia, the convener of today's meeting, invaded its neighbors in Ukraine and struck at the heart of the UN Charter. And Russia, time and time again, has violated universal human rights and fundamental freedoms, both outside and inside its own borders.
Western nations had a whole list of things they could complain about directly to the foreign minister. Elizabeth Whalen, the sister of imprisoned American Paul Whalen, was on hand. She watched the meeting from inside the council chamber. She again pleaded for Russia to release her brother and other American hostages.
And who will be their next victim? It doesn't take a stretch of the imagination to see that Russia will continue to push the boundaries. I am here today to tell the global community that one way to engage in effective multilateralism is to confront those countries that resort to hostage diplomacy.
Russia's Foreign Minister Lavrov was also here to work on improving the Black Sea grain deal as he met with the UN Secretary General.
Yeah, so basically, anytime Russia shows up to the world stage, they basically get blasted by pretty much most of the world. The United Nations, which is pretty much the rest of the world, has had multiple votes here, and somewhere between 95 to 99% of the rest of the world, depending on which vote, has voted against them in every vote, counting the votes that have voted yes or no, not counting the votes that have basically abstained or not voted, right? So when it comes to the votes, and they voted against Russia or for Russia, about 95 to 99% of countries have voted against Russia, whatever the vote is. So was the vote legal for the annexation of the territory that Ukraine tried to claim for theirs? It was like 98 or 99% of Russia or that Ukraine territory said that vote was illegal. And literally the world is laughing at Russia. That Sergei Lavrov, he basically got laughed at here off the stage here recently when he tried to say that it was Ukraine that caused the war and they forced Russia to invade. And that it was Russia that wanted to stop the war. If Russia wanted to stop the war, they could just take their troops out of Ukraine. You don't keep firing missiles if you wanted to stop the war. You don't keep sending troops in there if you wanted to stop the war. See, nobody really believes what they're saying. It's just not realistic. Just like when they told everybody, the 150,000 troops that were right on the Ukraine border, that they weren't going to invade. Remember that? Oh, we're not going to invade. We're not going to. And then literally like 2 or 3 days later, they invaded. Like, you can't just lie to the entire world and do it and then think that people are going to take you for your word. I mean, when I was raised, it was like, your word was your bond. It's just your word is everything. So if you tell people you're not going to invade and then you invade a few days later, I mean, what you think people are going to trust you? It's just like, and remember, if you go back here years ago when when Ukraine separated from the USSR, there was a treaty because the Ukraine had a bunch of nuclear weapons from Russia that were on their territory. Okay. And Ukraine actually gave them back to Russia because they didn't have the codes for them, but they gave them back under the treaty was that Russia would never invade Ukraine. Yeah. So this is where it's just like kind of like over and over and over and over again that like you literally just break your word again and again and break. Just how many times can you lie to the world? But it's like, well, what do you do? Do you do you go to war with Russia? Some people would say, yeah, but if you do, Russia has nuclear weapons. So it's like, how far do you push the envelope? And so far, nobody has wanted to go to war with Russia except for Ukraine, who's defending their country. So this is where it's a difficult situation. You guys can let me know your thoughts here in the comments. What do you think is going to happen? How do you think this war ends? I'll keep you up to date here with everything going on here in our country. Make sure to subscribe down below. Click the bell icon if you haven't so you don't miss out on any new videos here. And make sure to like and share these videos here as well. Here's some videos you should watch next. If you're a gun owner, you should definitely watch this video to see what is happening right now. And 5 minutes ago, Kevin McCarthy just made a major warning for millions of Americans in this video. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.